What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show. We discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, stimulus check update, and what the president is going on here and what's going on with our country. President Biden with executive orders, presidential executive orders on a couple different fronts we're going to be talking about here. The Defense Production Act being invoked here, and we're going to talk about, well, got a lot of different things here. Also, it's come out here since this weekend. This is how bad it is here in the United States. At least 13 killed, dozens wounded in weekend mass shootings across the United States. This comes as Congress, both the House and the U.S. Senate, are considering gun reform laws right now. This is just one typical weekend here in the United States. This is just a typical weekend, guys. This is not really an extraordinary weekend because we look at what's happened since Uvalde. As of yesterday, there was 33 mass shootings since Uvalde here. So this just gives you an idea of how many are going on here. Mass shootings are with 4 or more people being shot or killed in the U.S. We're the only country in the world that has this problem of this magnitude. And according to a recent poll here, Americans overwhelmingly prioritize gun control over ownership rights. Now, this doesn't mean that we all have to give up our guns. But here's what recent polling shows. 70% of Americans think that enacting new gun control laws should take precedence over protecting ownership rights, according to a new ABC News IPSIS poll out here on Sunday. 70%, that would be considered a supermajority in Congress. That does not happen very often here. That's actually enough to override a presidential veto when you have that high of a amount. So 70% is very, very high to see those type of results. This indicates that widespread support for stricter gun control laws in the wakes of these shootings that we have had in Uvalde, Tulsa, just here recently. On the flip side, 29% of respondents believe protecting the right to own a wide variety of guns should be a higher priority than enacting new gun control laws. Well, we already have that, so I think that just means that we should keep what we have. This is the other 29% of what people say. The results were split along partisan lines, with 90% of Democrats and 75% of independents surveyed prioritizing new gun laws. Republicans actually were 50-50 almost. 56% of Republicans in the poll said protecting gun ownership rights takes priority. Only 35% of respondents approved of President Biden's handling of gun violence. It's actually an increase when of what was asked in January or December. Ouch. Let me know your thoughts here in the comments. This is going to come up for a vote here in the House and the Senate, potentially as early as this week. The reality of it is going to be, though, will there be any votes from Republicans in the Senate? Because they will need 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate, even though a majority of American people, 70%, think that there needs to be some kind of reform, any kind of reform. More background checks, waiting periods, upping the age limit, reducing automatics, being able to buy military weapons, some type of regulation, anything. I mean, children and people just literally every day are just suffering. 70% of Americans, which is considered a supermajority, believe that something needs to be done. We're the only country in the world, and we're not by any means saying take away every gun from every American. This is just not what is being said. In fact, that would never even pass. That's not even it's not even realistic for that to even pass. The question is, will any Republican senators in the Senate vote for any type of reform? Anything at all. Without them, nothing will pass. We need 10 Republican senators out of 50 to pass anything. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and we will see. I will keep you up to date. Next up on presidential executive orders coming out of President Biden, we have a couple different ones here on the block here. And yeah, but President Biden's approval rating, whew, not a good time to be president. Yeah, it's rough out there. It's pandemics, inflation. The only thing really doing good is the unemployment numbers and tax revenue coming in. In fact, the government is flush with cash, and states flush with cash. They're all taking in more revenue than normal. And in fact, if I recall the numbers, I read them in a previous video that tax revenues in 2022 is up by, was it 69 or 70% from individuals, and 20 some percent for businesses in 2022. That's because that's part of the reason why inflation is up. Everything is just, the economy's red hot, almost too hot, and that's part of the reason inflation is up. But here, check this out. President Biden invokes the Defense Production Act to expand clean energy production. Biden has been pushing Congress to pass clean energy investment and tax cuts. The issue here is that, well, I have a couple different things here about this. I'll let you hear from the White House, the new White House press secretary here on this here in a moment. But not everything can run on clean energy. Cars need gas. Semi-trucks need diesel. But there are some things that can run on clean energy. Power plants. We can move away from natural gas and gases coming out of the earth, and that can alleviate the pressures coming out of that. Just looking at things from a realist, not a Democrat point of view, not a Republican point of view. The less dependent we are on fossil fuels, probably the better in the long run, but it's not going to help us in the short term. Gas, you need gas to fill up your car unless you have an electric car, which the majority of Americans don't. But electric's going up as well. Electricity is skyrocketing. Everything is skyrocketing. So although solar and wind power and nuclear might be the future, all this stuff's going to take time. When you got to fill up your gas in your car, that's the immediate future, right? And there's kind of a give and take to oil production and what's needed right now to help Americans with inflation. I do agree that, in fact, there was recently, I'll show you this story here. You can see here right from the government, wind power. In 2021, wind turbines were the source of 9.2% of U.S. total utility scale electricity generation. Wind power. So we'll just round up to 10%. Almost 10% of power comes from wind in the U.S. That's really, really cool. Now, that's not going to help you with gas in your car, but that will help with utilities power, bring that cost down. Same thing with solar. And well, this kind of leads us to this Defense Production Act. Check this out. President Biden on Monday invoked the Defense Production Act to accelerate domestic production on clean energy technologies, including solar panel parts, in an effort to spur domestic manufacturing. Senior administration officials said this will also help to bring American jobs back home. Remember, this is not going to be a short-term fix. This is more of a long-term solution to kind of bring us away from fossil fuels over the long term. Not a short-term fix, guys. The president has been pushing Congress to pass clean energy investments and tax cuts in line with his clean energy and climate agenda. But on Monday is set to unilaterally, through presidential executive order, create a bridge to an American-made clean energy future. Biden authorized the Department of Energy to use the Defense Production Act to rapidly expand American manufacturing in solar panel parts instead of China, like photovoltaic modules and module components, building insulation, heat pumps, which heat and cool buildings super efficiently, equipment for making and using clean electricity generating fuels, and all this stuff. Here's what the White House had to say. There's the new White House press secretary.
On the Defense Production Act that was announced today, the president, taking a step back from that, what emergency is the president using to invoke the Defense Production Act? Because historically it's been in the 1950s for the Korean War, during COVID it was enacted. What emergency is it, or what's the real emergency in the solar industry for the Defense Production Act?
So let me, I was going to say first, the president, when he takes the Defense Production Act, it's to make sure that he's delivering for the American people. It is an important tool that he has used a couple of times, and it has been incredibly effective. So for this particular Clean Energy Defense Production Act, he is invoking the Defense Production Act to rapidly expand domestic production of solar panel parts, building insulation, heat pumps, and more. He is putting the full force of the federal government's purchasing power behind supporting American clean energy manufacturers.
So this is the type of thing that will bring more jobs back home, and also over the long run make us less reliant on fossil fuels where we can. Places like the energy grid, electricity, utilities, can't really do it for cars. You could if you buy an electric car, but that really depends. So California actually has over 1 million electric cars in California alone, but that really depends on you. Okay, so you can let me know your thoughts here on this. I personally, I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. I do think that going forward, if I was the president, I would focus on both. You can't completely get rid of fossil fuels, because if you restrain them too much, gas prices will go too high. But I also think that fossil fuels are extremely expensive. Look at the price of gas. And also, you have to continually dig them out of the ground. And as soon as you do, it's used up. Dig it out of the ground, used up. Things like nuclear, solar, and wind power, you build a nuclear reactor, and basically it's paid for. You just have a little bit of maintenance. You don't have to continually dig it up. Same thing with a solar panel. You build a solar panel, put it on the ground, and it's good for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Okay. You have very little maintenance. Same thing with the wind turbine. Okay. Yeah, many years down the road, you have to replace a turbine or something like that. But it's not like gas where you take it out of the ground and instantly burn it. It's gone instantly. So you think about this type of stuff. That is kind of the future, but it's not going to solve all our problems, because we're reliant on gas. Your car needs gas. And the other thing is our electrical grid needs a lot of upgrading as well. We think about like the problem Texas had. There's a lot of problems where infrastructure needs upgrading as well. So it's an ongoing process. Another kind of executive order will be that if and when it happens, is this is very controversial here. Would be that student loan forgiveness executive order. Yeah, you can see here President Biden is most inside sources from the White House says he is going to go forward with $10,000 of student loan forgiveness for people with federal student loans. NAACP President Derek Johnson on why student loan cancellation is needed. He says, quote, "It's no different than the mortgage crisis." CNBC recently spoke with the NAACP president and CEO Derek Johnson about why the civil rights organization won't stop talking about student debt cancellation. There are no paths, or quote, "There are no paths forward to closing the racial wealth gap without first addressing the student loan crisis in a substantial way." Yeah, so the thing is that anybody who tells you that the rich are going to benefit from student loan cancellation is I don't know where they get this stuff, but they're whack. the, they the rich don't have student loans. If they're rich, they paid them off, right? I mean, it's the poor, lower class, middle class that have these loans for 20, 30, 40 years, can't pay them off, and that it holds them down for many, many, many years. And you hear these stories of people going into retirement and they still have their student loans. And this is and the $10,000 is really just a part of it. It's the I want to say the icing on the cake, but it's not the best analogy because it's a slice of the cake. Maybe would be better because $10,000 is like one semester nowadays. So and this will help the poor and lower middle class and middle class kind of get out of this debt that they may have signed up for 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and kind of get them back on their feet. And then there is the question of other types of debt forgiveness here as well: medical debt forgiveness, credit card debt forgiveness, tax debt forgiveness. And realistically, the government's just going to write this off on their books. This 95% of this money is owed to the federal government. They're just going to, if you've ever seen that from the Wall Street movie, they're just going to write it off. It's owed to them, and they're just going to say, you don't owe it to us anymore. So, yes, student loan debt is one of the largest incomes of the federal government. They're just going to say you don't owe us $10,000 anymore. But the thing is, a lot of people owe more than $10,000. So, yeah, and it's actually not a bad time to do it with the government taking in all this extra tax revenue. But, but the problem is that all the people that don't have student loan debt are like, well, that's great for them. Like me and my wife, we paid off my wife's student loans. I guess I paid off my student loans. I went to college for 1 year and then I started my own business. I paid them off, or actually I think me and my mom paid them off. This was, God, 20 years, 20, something like that, 20 years ago. And, so we've paid off our student loans, and I don't have any ill will towards them. As I've told you, my thoughts are help anybody in need. If the government has this money, they have trillions and trillions of dollars. If the federal deficit goes from $30 trillion to $30.1 trillion and 40 million people get helped, I'd rather see 40 million people get help. And really, the question is that does this even affect the deficit? Because it's just money that the government's just going to waive. Does the deficit matter if it's 30.2 trillion or 30.3 trillion? And really, they've paid off, or they're in the process of paying off. It's hard to decipher where this is at, but they've paid off $1.5 trillion in deficit because the government's taking in all this extra tax revenue right now. So, because unemployment's low, people are going back to work. That's where all these states are getting a lot of this extra money as well. So, if anything, the deficit's going down right now. So, since it's going down, I mean, yeah. But the reality of it is that the unfairness part of it, there needs to be some other things for the rest of people. And that's where I think we're going to see the SNAP program be increased with this next SNAP conference. And the real program that would really help people is another stimulus check or an anti-inflation check or other types of debt relief in there, because that would cover a large chunk of people in the middle. If we think about student loan debt forgiveness here and maybe SNAP benefits here, that's 40 million people here and 40 million people here, 80 million people. And some people might be get both of them or something like that. But the stimulus check program kind of covers everybody. So that's why stimulus checks are so popular. That it, I don't remember the recent number or the recent statistic, but it was covered in a recent video. What was it? It was either 70% or 90% of people were in favor of stimulus checks. And it was overwhelmingly popular. And remember that anything 70% and above is considered a super majority. It's enough to override a presidential veto. Anytime you ever see that type of number, 70% or above, basically 2/3 and above, it's astounding. It's overwhelming. Those type of numbers. It's hard to get 70% of people to agree on anything. Yeah, trust me. So. And this, the reality of it is when you give people money to help them with their debt, help them with their problems. And remember, 64% of people right now in the country are living paycheck to paycheck or are behind on their bills. And remember that 50% of people 55 and older, basically our senior population, have no retirement. So just kind of like let that sink in. Add those up, and it's like the government's got to step up here. And especially now that money's coming in, the government will have money. The question is that what are they going to do with it? So I'll keep you up to date here. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. It's one of the only things that is free left in the world today. So subscribe and then click the bell icon so you get notifications as soon as we go live, which is every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will keep you up to date here with what's going on. You can click here to watch my newest video about Social Security raises that just came out. And this is my newest video about stimulus checks. Really good video there. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.